Eclipse season continues, and this lunar eclipse in Taurus looks chaotic as fuck. There's no way to under-exaggerate this, to be honest. And on literally US election day, big eek. So if you're excited to dive into what we can collectively expect from this full moon, lunar eclipse in Taurus, make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you are always up to date with what the stars have in store for you. Firstly, we're going to get into the overall vibe of this lunar eclipse, then get into how this is playing into some world event charts. And if you have not already seen your November rising sign forecast, you might want to watch that for your particular sign to know how this is going to be playing out in your life. If you're new here, hi, I'm Maren. I am a tropical Western astrologer, and I'm here in my childhood bedroom, which is a little funny to be filming this video in now with just... yeah, it's been an interesting few years since I filmed anything in here, which I don't think I did, aside from videos I never posted when I was 17, 18, but welcome to Maren's, still right out of high school room. Now let's get into the actual video. So we're gonna first explain what eclipses are, what a lunar eclipse is, and provide that context for what we're looking at. So eclipses are when the sun and the moon are positioned either in a new or the full moon, right on the ecliptic, which is the sun's orbit. And this is either at the northern point on the north node or the southern point on the south node, and these are energetic extremes symbolically. If you look into what the ecliptic is, or you watch my video on the north and the south node and a little bit more explanation on it, it might give insight to how these are energetic extremes. The north node represents increase, ambition, going after something and being obsessed, and the south node represents letting go, decrease, releasing, or being apathetic. And lunar eclipses are always full moons where the sun and the moon are on the nodes. So the sun is opposite the moon either on the north or the south node. In this case, the sun is on the north node and the moon is on the south node. So the moon, the energy of the lunation, of the collective, of the more passive, like people embodying this, is more of a letting go, versus the sun is on the north node, so the people in power or someone of an authority figure, there's more ambition and drive going into that side of things. So it doesn't mean good or bad, but eclipses are inherently destructive, and generally in Vedic astrology, they're pretty honest about it being a malefic indicator of destruction and of warning. I was born under a solar eclipse, so it's not as if I am, blinded or deluded. So yes, you will hear astrologers making claims about how to best use this and manifest whatever the fuck that I don't even know. If I'm honest with you, this is an extremely chaotic, extremely intense full moon. Yes, the moon is exalted in Taurus, so this lunar eclipse has some dignity, but the aspects to it definitely make me recommend more so sitting back and letting things ride out rather than making use of this. Often trying to manifest or make use of eclipse energy leads to thinking that you are going to catch the wave as a surfer, but being completely obliterated by a tsunami. It's kind of like, this is a huge collective whirlwind. How dare you think that you can fucking light a little match and not get completely burned? So it's not a big deal. Obviously, do what the fuck you want to do. I don't give a shit. But if I'm going to recommend to you off the bat what I would do around this eclipse, I would stay home, watch movies, and click on the election channel every few minutes to see what goes on. I would not be out in the open, I don't know, partying or in some major city just frolicking around, even though I'll probably be in New York during this time, trying to be in the room where it happened, so to speak, because I, as an eclipse baby, am like, bad idea, let's fucking do it. Anyway, this is happening on November 8th, 2022 at 6:01 a.m. Eastern Time, and the sun will be in the second decan of Scorpio while the moon is in the second decan of Taurus. Now, the decans are third parts that allow for a little bit more texture or explanation of what's happening in the sky. So with the sun in Scorpio and the moon in Taurus, this does deal with the base foundations of life. This deals with things like food, security. It sounds a bit nebulous, but I'd say truth and secrecy. So Taurus deals with the literal foundations of life and values like food, finance, energy, and and Scorpio deals with the more internal extremes of intimacy and of trust and of running deep emotionally. So when there's a lunar eclipse regarding these things, I'm forecasting a major disruption in the foundations of life and their meaning to us. Supply lines on the midst of an election definitely looks like there will not be a trusted outcome, but I get it. Anyone can fucking say that in the US, so don't come at me being like anyone could say it. Bitch, I invite you to make your own video and say it. If this is a video with the moon in Taurus for what we're talking about here, I'm always okay. But the second decan of Scorpio, where the Sun and Mercury and Venus and the South Node are, it's associated with the Six of Cups tarot card, known as the Lord of Pleasure. And it's usually showing that it's a pretty positive area of the sky generally. It shows being social, it shows being appreciative. But on the contrary, if this card is inverted, it shows misery and being very upset when you're surrounded by abundance, like being the one crying in the club. That's literally how I describe this card often is. If it's inverted, you're crying at the club. So with the Sun in that part of the sky, the authority figures, the power structures, and those who are in charge of this kind of chaotic event are miserable, and no one is happy at the top. Now, the Moon is in the second decan of Taurus, associated with the Six of Pentacles tarot card, and this is actually a pretty overtly positive card as well. It's known as the Lord of Success. It shows that your internal environment brought forth a really supportive external environment. Like, you had the family, you have the car, you have the money, you have the wife. It's a very blasé, like you got it and you're happy with it. However, inverted, it shows that there's an imbalance in your priorities and therefore you're not going to be happy with the outcome. So because this full moon lunar eclipse, I'm going to use the two interchangeably because this is a full moon lunar eclipse, as all lunar eclipses are full moons. But I'm going to be honest here because this full moon is exactly conjunct Uranus by degree. This lunar eclipse is at 16 degrees. Uranus is at 16 degrees. The moon is right on Uranus at 16 degrees. Uranus is a planet of chaos, instability, upheaval, and rebellion. So there's no getting around that the release of energy, because full moons are always dramatic releases of energy. This looks extremely intense. Like, literally could be an energetic release of some kind, like an explosion, a supply line, just a huge release of chaotic earth sign energy. And it's squaring Saturn in Aquarius within 2 degrees. Saturn is at 18 degrees Aquarius. So it shows blockages or restrictions being in the way and an opposition of not moving fast enough. So even though there's chaos and there's a huge release of energy, it shows that one of the other issues is that there's not a response fast enough or getting out of the way. So metaphorically, the way that I would see this is that there's literally like a bomb and it's blowing up literal ground and it shakes up someone's home and they knew it was coming and they saw it happening, but they couldn't unlock the door fast enough. That's the metaphor that I would use here. Like on a personal level of how this is showing up in our own lives on the Taurus house in your chart, it looks like suddenly having a reality check around material circumstances that you cannot immediately change, but that you know are suddenly in your face. Like, oh my God, I've been overspending or not investing and I can't do anything about that right now, but my bank account has an overdraft balance. Oh shit. That kind of thing, where that's honestly a moderate example. It could be much more intense, like poverty or like famine-wise. Just to be honest, like that's the degree of craziness that this does show. Now, the North Node shows ambition and like you're gonna make it fucking work and you're gonna go after it. So I do see this lighting a fire under everyone's ass to really change shit, but it does mean that there's a volcano erupting right now and we're really motivated to ensure that that doesn't happen again. But right now we need to face the reality and listen to the music and see what's really happening. Now, Mercury is very close to the South Node, which brings in themes of speaking about the past. And Mercury is also Cazimi with the Sun, which brings up an illumination of information or a realization. So having a Scorpio Sun Mercury Cazimi during an election is like, damn God, there's some information coming out that is released, that's confidential, that really fucks shit up. And as I've said for weeks now, it does really look pivotal in Biden's chart, as we'll get into here as well. So Venus is in its antithesis. Venus rules the opposite sign of Taurus. So seeing Venus in Scorpio does not mean it's comfortable. It means that being harmonious, women's values, things regarding femininity or feeling safe are not happening. That people are disrupted. They are not... No, that there's a disruptive, very inherently people are not feeling grateful or gracious during this time. Mars is also squaring Neptune, which shows that there is lack of clarity in actions. There's lack of clarity in choosing the right plan of direction. There's lack of clarity in data and disagreement and what truth is. There's just a huge wall up around that. And Jupiter is now squaring Mars, so that is helpful actually, that there's a superior square from Jupiter, but Jupiter is past the degree of Mars, even though they're both retrograde, so it's not that as helpful as it could be. But Jupiter in its own sign squaring Mars does show like there's a little bit of optimistic opportunity to solve things, but we don't quite know what direction we're solving in right now. In a world sense, I would predict immense technological disruption to a degree that involves physical infrastructure or literally like something falling beneath our eyes. I would see possibly electrical lines going down and impacting the ability to get anywhere, possibly a huge meltdown of some type of like reactor or plant or something vital like that. Definitely one of the most chaotic lunations I've ever seen. I often get people saying that I fearmonger or I say that everything is the next big thing. I fucking don't. There's plenty of nice things going on time to time. This is not one of them. And to tie it up in an election sense, we will get into the US chart in a minute. But if you already know what area of your life this is playing out in, or if you don't, check the Taurus house in your chart and leave me a comment down below what you're expecting and any of your feelings already looking forward. So in the United States chart, this lunar eclipse is in the 6th house. The 6th house can deal with workers, the working class, or healthcare. So this drama is just absolutely ridiculous. I think that with the 6th house, 12th house axis activated, confidentiality, things being blown out of proportion, or confidential things being leaked is very likely, possibly to do with health or to do with even comments on the pandemic and how it was managed, or the working class and people that are at the front lines. The exact Neptune opposition is going on as well. So Neptune opposite Neptune shows lack of clarity and idealization and who the leader is or what we really are representing or fighting for. So the exact Neptune opposition during this time is just really, really gnarly and atrocious. And the Mars return is nearly exactly there. So if you haven't already seen my video on Mars and Gemini, I do have a full video on Mars and Gemini up on the retrograde on this transit. And it gets into how Mars and Gemini in the US chart often involves civil partisan fighting, like civil uproar, just issues. So having that retrograde right now shows basically with the lunar eclipse being the end or a letting go, but on the North Node, this is the beginning of the end of something. This is the beginning of the end of something regarding partisan disagreement. I'm seeing that likely because I think that several things going on right now do show conservatism or going back to the past. I think that it could be a lot of uproar if there's Democratic losses or liberal losses. For Biden, Jesus Christ is how I sum that up. There's everything is on his Scorpio stellium. Just like there's so much fucking going on there. Mars is the most challenging planet in his chart. It rules his 5th house of kids and his 12th house of behind the scenes information. Do I have to explain more? I don't want to get banned, but like I would be talking about kids and secret things about his kids no matter who this person was. So definitely a time of something coming out. It could be very intentional because often people save good stories and then release them around elections. So it could definitely be the release of something that is very intentional. And Neptune is on his IC. Now, I have not commented on this in a few years, but I have mentioned it a couple years ago that Neptune on his IC, just like stationing and very slow during this time, shows lack of clarity and honesty around family. It shows idealization. It shows rose-colored glasses. It shows that there could be really lovely dynamics between him and his family, but also a lack of honesty, a lack of clear thinking regarding that area of his life. So for Kamala Harris, this is happening near her Jupiter in the 12th house, showing that there's a lot of growth or a lot of opportunity coming to her from this behind the scenes activity. Jupiter is ruling her 7th house of partnerships and her 10th house of career. So I think it does tie in Biden and this leading to an opportunity in a growth sense for her because of what's happening with him. The sun is exactly on her natal Neptune in the 6th house, which shows an illumination of idealization of power or of leadership, and the 6th house is people that work for her. So I think that there's a lack of awareness for the people that she works with and around, but also an opportunity to step up and be managerial. And Mars is pretty much exactly like on her ascendant right now. So she has an opportunity that involves going back to take on more power and action. But Mars retrograde on the ascendant shows going back or defending, having to go back and change something. And that's very relevant for her chart. So for Trump, Mars is on his sun, which is not very good. It's not easy. It's quite aggressive, but having to rethink things. So with Mars retrograde, which is going back to rethink actions and the way that you're being assertive, in his 11th house of audience or party affiliation and often the public eye, on his sun, which rules his 1st house of self, I think he's rethinking his platform, his push, his party affiliation, how he presents himself in the public eye. And with this opposing his moon, which rules his 12th house of hidden matters, I think that there's also more released around him. I think it'll be a media field day for both sides, releasing absolute just like chaotic bullshit about each other and not really being activated, because so much 12th house for everyone involved here shows it all being blown out of proportion from behind the scenes. And with this, most importantly, this eclipse is right on his midheaven within 8 degrees, which is an ending and a letting go of something professionally for him to make way for a very clear new direction. I don't think it means he's leaving politics. I don't think it's something like that. I think it is energetically a decision to leave something behind and affiliate himself in a different way. It honestly could be a new party. It could be that he's moving towards a new party direction, declaring his own kind of lane, or it could be that the Trumpism separates from the general Republican Party, something along those lines. I expect him to be ending some chapter in his career and moving into something very, very priority. Something is very prioritized. For Bitcoin, I expect us to dump as fuck into this. It's a full moon. Lunar eclipses are always full moons. We dump into full moons and pump out of them. This is trine Bitcoin's sun within a few degrees, but I don't think it's too relevant, but I do think we will pump after. But I mean, for Ethereum, this is squaring its Mercury. It's not cute. It's not the most active in either of these charts to a huge degree, but I do think that there's no way that around the chaos of this time, we do not dump into this continuing. Have the tarot card, so let's get into a tarot card pulled for this lunar eclipse full moon in Scorpio. Have some tarot cards, let's get into the tarot card that we pull for this lunar eclipse in Taurus. Before I literally pass out, like my nose is so runny, my vision's blurry, I'm allergic as fuck to something in this house. We have the Emperor. Now the Emperor is Aries energy, it is boss bitch, big daddy, like going after and ruling what you need to do. So this looks like reality check, you're the one that needs to step up and change the material circumstances. Yeah, the rug is pulled out from underneath you, but life is unfair, water under the bridge, now move on to build something. Capricorn rising, man, really fucking came out today, Jesus, sorry, tough love. So if you enjoyed this, or you didn't, but you enjoyed not enjoying it, likely with this transit, feel free to check out my offerings down below, such as courses, consultations, if those are open right now, and other things. You can always ask me questions on Hey Hero, where I give responses within a few days to any of your astrology questions. But otherwise, make sure that you like, subscribe, and comment down below anything that you're feeling, thinking, or is coming up. I would love to hear from you. I read it all, and I try to respond to as much as I can. So I will see you in the next one. Enjoy the end of eclipse season, and hope that you're thriving.
How there is one